you sleep at night, you put it near your window. You'll find different pieces in that web that can hold the bad spirits that come in. When you sleep at night, you're supposed to sleep sound and not have a worry in the world. You can wake up in the morning, you shake the dream catcher outside of the house, you hang it back up. All the bad dreams, all the bad experiences that were caught, they're gone. I grew up in the city of Ottawa in Canada. Initially grew up in the south side, a little bit of a more rough area. My parents worked really hard to get us out of that area, and eventually we moved out east in a section called Orleans. Football in Canada is not necessarily the biggest thing. You know, you'll find all the kids playing hockey a lot more than football. I think, in high school, at St. Pete's, we might have had some days where, we would have like 200 kids show up to a game, and that was like a big deal. Football was a place where I could release some aggression. I wasn't necessarily the most aggressive kid at school, anything like that, but something about football just made me feel good. Being out there, being with my teammates, having a collective purpose, and I think that's one thing that's kind of driven me as a person is finding purpose. I do have a tattoo right here of the Thunderbird, which in the Ojibwe culture is seen as a protector of his people. Not necessarily a terribly aggressive being, but when he's needed, he comes down with the wrath of thunder and lightning. I had always been connected to my culture in a very personal way, but I never really explored the different hardships affecting my community. Murder rates, alcoholism, missing and murdered Indigenous women. To a degree, it's almost like a forgotten people. So I think it's important to bring these issues to light.
$5,203. That's how many Indigenous women and girls were reported missing to the FBI in 1 year.
I came home and things just felt off for me. And that's when I asked her, "Where's my sister?" And I just kind of had like a weird sense. And then I called my mom. She was at work and she wasn't answering.
So I opened up the depot like at 5 or 5:30 and opened up the doors at 6. The very first customer that came in was telling me that they seen my daughter's car parked up at Muddy Creek, and it was just on the side of the road, and I had a flat tire.
That's when I kind of knew something was wrong. Even though she was 21, she always took care of her son, and it wasn't like her to just not have any communication at all.
I just kept asking people that come in, "Have you seen Hannah?" And everybody kept saying, "Not since last night." The cop come into the depot and I told him that my daughter didn't come home last night and that nobody has heard from her today, and if I could go fill out a missing persons report. We were told that they weren't going to take it serious because it hasn't been 24 hours. And just saying that she's just probably out having fun still. My auntie had asked if we could start searching for her on our own. And they said, go ahead.
My mom, she's Indigenous. She grew up in a small town called Field, Ontario, a very small farmhouse along with 9 brothers and sisters. Her mom, my grandmother, is from Doki's First Nation. She's Ojibwe. Our Indigenous culture was definitely a big part of the house, telling us stories and fables, going to different events, simply listening to music.
His first powwow was probably around the age of 6. I wanted to make sure that Eli was aware of the chief, that the stomping of the feet on the ground, when you can feel the drums being hit and you can feel that resonating. And when the grand opening is happening and all the dancers are going in the circle, it's a circle of life. And it's a sign of respect to Mother Earth.
It's such a beautiful sight because we're talking about a group of people who dealt with so much, and to have the strength to just keep going and express themselves regardless of what type of silencing methods they had to deal with throughout history.
We didn't get support in the beginning. They didn't take it serious. It's kind of been like that for law enforcement around here.
The cops not taking it serious, it was like, made us more upset. And I think that's what made us more, worried.
I see it on TV all the time when somebody goes missing. Yeah, they get on it right away and they get investigators. We don't have that here.
It was really hard just trying to find somebody to come help us search. We were asking other, jurisdictions if they could come help us search, but they couldn't.
We had to search for her ourselves.
We went up to where they found my sister's car, and that's when we looked inside the vehicle. We were so scared when we popped the trunk.
Well, she wasn't in the trunk, but she was still missing. Where's Hannah?
Tribal lands in a remote area, you might find maybe 5 or 6 officers kind of patrolling a very large portion of land.
Over 400,000 acres to patrol, and it's very remote. Billings is, an hour and a half away. That's the nearest city to our reservation.
On tribal land, you might not get cell service. You're not gonna find a terrible amount of radio towers or cell towers kind of laying around the land. And so now you're dealing with sat phone. If you don't have that, you're kind of on your own. In a very basic sense, you have to look at tribal lands as more or less a sovereign nation. Tribal police is the first player here. Again, this is the department that's going to be on your reservation if there are the resources to provide that. It could range from one single police officer to multiple.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs is the government's representative on Indian reservations. Each reservation has what they call a superintendent. The superintendent is the Secretary of Interior's representative on the reservation.
On the more severe cases, you'll find the FBI getting involved. And they might live a few hours away from the community that they're working with.
Indian country is one of the most complicated jurisdictional issues you'll see.
On one hand, yes, there needs to be a respect on the sovereignty of a specific tribe or nation. But on the other hand, there needs to be a priority put on figuring out how to help these situations.
Bureau of Indian Affairs police did show up, finally, and they set up their fancy air-conditioned thing, and was already angry that, they weren't helping us at first, so we didn't really pay attention to them.
I received a call from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and they notified me that Hannah Harris had been missing since July 3rd. I traveled to the Northern Cheyenne Reservation and began my investigation. When I arrived at the scene, there was a search that was ongoing. There were community members combing the hillside and the mountainsides where Hannah's car was found, trying to find any evidence of Hannah. As people continued to search, somebody located one of Hannah's shoes.
They found her shoe, and they found a sash that my adopted daughter, Rennie, put on her that night. So that was there. There were signs there, but no Hannah.
That was the moment for me where I realized that we truly have a situation that involves foul play. It is July 8th by this time, and Hannah was last seen on July 3rd, so we know that we have an imminent problem.
Indigenous people have definitely dealt with traumatic events for the better part of a few hundred years, starting in the 1800s, bleeding off into the 60s, 70s. Indigenous kids were being taken from their home by the government and put into residential schools where they could learn how to, quote unquote, be more civilized.
Their hair was cut short. Their clothing were taken away and burnt. If you dare speak your First Nation language, a lot of them were beaten up, insulted, raped, abused. They wanted to make sure that we forgot about who we are.
In my mom's area, police had come by the house and they tried to take the kids. My grandfather, being my grandfather, pulls out his gun. He told him, "I dare you to touch my kids." And gun in hand, police saw that. They said, "We'll be back." Funny part was they never came back to collect my mother or her siblings. This happened up until the 80s. Matter of fact, some of our close family friends were taken as children, and they lost their parents. They lost their families. They didn't know who they were. As much as we try to sweep it under the rug, the survivors are the ones who gain the strength to talk about it. And the survivors are the ones who were able to share their stories.
Na hat damit dann. Na das nimmen hat nimmer ja. Det tog sig till one. Henne är det.
That night, I heard 2 cars coming in. I could hear Melinda say, "Where's Mom?" And I just sank, like... I put my shoes on. I came out. And she ran toward me and she just hugged me. She said they found her. I had no emotion. I didn't have anything. I gave her a hug. And from then on, it was like I wasn't here.
From the very beginning, I kept thinking that she was gonna come home. Even when I was told that her body was found, I didn't want to believe it. I had to be told by a police officer that it was true in order for me to finally believe that she was gone. Because I had hope that she would be walking through that door.
That afternoon, a thunderstorm came through, and that kind of broke up the search party. However, there were individuals from search and rescue in the Lame Deer community that continued to search into the evening. They had traveled many miles through the hills and mountains that day.
She was found up at the rodeo grounds. Up on the top, there's a flat part. And when she was found, the guy that found her, he was so traumatized that he told us that he would never step foot on the reservation again because of what he's seen. Because of the hot sun, she was already deteriorating when they found her. They wouldn't let us see the body. The way we were able to know that it was my sister was her tattoos. They had her in a vehicle in the back. And our whole family was right there.
The back window was open and I could smell. I wanted to run, but I thought, that's my granddaughter in there.
MMIW. It is an acronym for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. It focuses on the fact that, proportionally speaking, Indigenous women and girls are targeted for violent crimes, murder, kidnappings, abuse at an alarming rate. When these women are found, they get ticked off in the box of, we don't know what happened, undetermined cause of death. But the fact is, a healthy teenage girl, young adult girl, finding herself dead in a remote area is not normal. It is not just an undetermined cause of death. There is something larger at play here. There's supposed to be, obviously, a process of trying to find someone. And without the resources to maybe dig deeper into potentially what could be found, it becomes one of those cases where people move on.
When the Hannah Harris case was going on, I was a violent crime criminal investigator in Crow Agency, which is the reservation next to us. The supervisor in Billings assigned me over here to Northern Cheyenne probably about a month into the Hannah Harris case. The FBI was working the case at the time. A gentleman by the name of Brandon Walter, who was a very good FBI agent. And me and him teamed up in investigating the case.
Hannah's body was located near the rodeo grounds, which was multiple miles if you would take the highway. It was clear that Hannah didn't walk that distance. In fact, we already had one of Hannah's shoes back at the location near where her car was found. So it was clear that Hannah had somehow been transported.
In law enforcement, the first few hours is very critical. That's where a lot of your evidence is.
Hannah's body was in a state of decomposition when it was discovered.
Yeah, there was not much there. So a lot of evidence was not very good.
That was another stumbling block for the investigation. The Bureau of Indian Affairs had already interviewed the two main subjects in this case.
They were the last ones to be seen with Hannah, and they did not have a very good explanation as to where Hannah went, how they left Hannah.
They had the keys to my daughter's car.
And the cops just let her go.
The community wants the two main subjects of this investigation to be arrested immediately and thrown in jail. We, as the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, discussed with the BIA and determined that that wasn't the best course of action.
We all know who did it, but there hasn't really been justice.
We've seen it so much on the reservation. We're gonna scream, we're gonna shout. We're gonna do whatever it takes to get justice for my sister.
At that point, the community set up a sign at the major intersection in Lame Deer, where the two highways intersect right there in town. And somebody every day would paint a new number on that saying, "Justice for Hannah. This is how many days that it's been since Hannah's been missing."
No answers. They wouldn't answer us. It seemed like forever. We were in a dark place.
We got a tip from the Bureau of Indian Affairs in South Dakota. One of the suspects in Hannah's murder had described in a drunken state to her a dream that she had had. That night, they are drinking alcohol with Hannah. They purchase liquor from the bar before they leave. And then they travel out to the location where Hannah's car was found.
Gina, she was passed out, but she woke up to somebody hollering. And when she got in there, Gina's husband was raping Hannah.
Hannah is screaming for help. She goes over to help Hannah. Hannah is reaching for help and hits her. This is when the wife goes into a rage and beats Hannah. They both drag her outside and throw her outside the trailer.
that ran over in my mind over and over and over. How could somebody do that?
This dream fit all of the evidence that myself and Agent Grinzel had collected, and this description of a dream turned out to be the piece of information that we needed to crack the case. The female was convicted and is currently serving 22 years in federal prison. The male in this case was convicted and served 10 years in federal prison with some time off for good behavior. He was released from federal prison. In November of 2022, he was hit by a vehicle pulling a trailer. So he is deceased at this point.
This is where the searchers found Anna's body. People come out here from time to time. The family comes out here from time to time to offer their, you can see the trinkets around the trees. People leave rocks, different things. So yeah. You know, every time I come out here, I do get emotional. And it was very, very contentious for the community and law enforcement at the time when this case was going on. And you could feel that tension. And as investigators, we should not make our victims our opponents. And that's what we need to really, really think about, is that when we were going through this, and as we were going through it, I had no hard feelings towards the family for trying to keep this case in the forefront. And, you know, as they marched, as they put signs up, law enforcement should take inspiration in that and take that and use that in their drive and their determination to solve these cases.
It's been happening generation after generation after generation for us. Tough warrior women have to step up and start voicing ourselves and our stories, because we want the world to know that our lives matter too.
Bill that is named after a lame deer woman is making its way through Montana legislature.
Steve Bullock signed Hannah's Act today, a law aimed at addressing an epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous persons. House Bill 21 authorizes the Montana Department of Justice to assist with the investigation of all missing persons cases and requires the DOJ to hire a missing persons specialist.
They wanted a specialist in there to help with families to first get a database going for the Native Americans. Now we keep track of our missing, our murdered. It's also supposed to bring the Justice Department to come in and assist with our local police department.
We started out just trying to get justice for my little sister. Then we were thinking, well, what about these other families? We just started getting more and more people involved, telling them to come out and talk about their stories. And, you know, I think just breaking that barrier of people knowing that it's okay to talk about their lost loved ones, because when you speak about it, yeah, it brings up that trauma, but in a way, it also relieves that trauma, especially for the ones that are still searching for their loved ones. So I feel like that's a good way to see in the bigger picture of what really is going on.
May 5th is a National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. It's designated to Hannah on her birthday. County Commissioner Ed Joyner was the one that wrote it up, and we all took it to Helena to get it passed through Montana State into a resolution.
It's really significant that our family fought for that day for her. It's a symbol that she and others are not forgotten. And they never will be.
I really think my sister would have been proud of us knowing that, we expanded this for people that are fighting this fight, going through this battle.
The red handprint is basically the main symbol behind the MMIWG crisis, and it symbolizes the voices of women being silenced.
The red is blood. The handprint is the perpetrators of the crime, the system in which they have to deal with or to live in that keeps this cycle going. My fiance and I started our nonprofit organization, the Dreamcatcher Foundation.
The Dreamcatcher Foundation started back in 2018 with the main focus being to empower Native youth through sports, such as cycling and football, and then also dedicated to raising awareness of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls crisis in North America. Native women are murdered at a rate 10 times higher than the national average, and 3 out of 4 Native women experience violence at some point in their lives, particularly sexual violence. It's an issue that I feel like most people have no idea about.
We call attention to the issue of MMIW in Hannah's honor, but in also the honor of other girls who have gone missing or murdered around the United States and Canada. There needs to be some sort of change with the way we interact, the process of finding these people, the process of protecting them. You can clearly see a family who's hurt, a mother who's grieving her daughter. Everyone surrounding her will forever be affected. And now they have to be left to pick up the pieces.
How often do you come up here?
Pretty often, pretty much, probably 3 times a week. My mom's right here, and then my grandpa's right there. We like to pick flowers here. And pray.
She was really a fun-loving girl that really cared about her community and other people. If you were hungry, she would feed you. If you needed a ride, she'd give you a ride. She was very caring.
Know that she was a fighting Cheyenne, just like me and my mother are, my grandma.
I would just want people to know that in her short time as a mother, she was a really good mom. She did her best for her son, and she loved him.
Maybe a month after Hannah was gone, I was watching him. We were sitting out here, and I was just crying because I could see Hannah's grave, and Jeremiah was trying to walk. And I was crying, and I said, "Oh, Hannah, always watch over your son. Don't ever leave him. Watch over your son." And just like that, a breeze came. It was like her spirit, like she answered me.
Sometimes if you see eagles, that's like a good thing. They try to like, some of them, they like to come close to you, and if they circle you, that means like it's somebody who passed and loves you. And that happened to me a couple times. And I believe it was my dad, my mom, and Grandpa Raymond. They're there, and like they're watching us